So without further ado, I'd like to introduce our special guest speaker today, Dr. Gala Kornienko. She is Director of Research and Development for Innovative Communities at the National Youth Advocate Program. She's also a lecturer in the City and Regional Planning Program at The Ohio State University. When she was here at the University of Kansas, she was a Fulbright Scholar, and she also holds, again, a Master of Urban Planning degree from KU. Gala is an active member of the American Planning Association, which is referred to as APA. She's secretary for the International Division of the APA. She's also a core member of the Japan-United States Collaboration Group and co-founder of the APA Planning for Underserved Populations Interest Group. As a Ukrainian, Dr. Kornienko participates in the Ukrainian Rebuilding Action Group and the Urban Coalition for Ukraine. Gala's research explores the nexus of urban design, neuroscience, and the planning process, especially as it affects the 20% of the United States population who are neurodiverse. Some publications that illustrate these interests include Universal Design and Inclusive Participation, Disability in Ukrainian Urban Space, and When Every Day is a Sensory Overload. The title of her presentation today is International Planning, Challenges and Opportunities for Ukraine Green and Disability Inclusive Rebuilding. Please join me in welcoming our special guest, Dr. Gala Kornienko.
Thank you so much. Thank you so much for inviting me to give this presentation, which I hope will end in more collaboration with APA and in particular our Ukraine Rebuilding Action Group. This is the blessing for us because we are looking for more people, more planners, more experts to participate in our initiatives. Thank you for introduction as well. So I am in a red dress, wearing the blue scarves, have short hair, and these colors I selected to be connected with crimson and blue colors of my alma mater. Thank you. So as you mentioned, in 2016, I earned University of Kansas Master in Urban Planning with specific emphasis on sustainable land use. Before that, the degree was preceded by years of working for city government in my native Ukraine, during which I worked on various Ukraine, United States cooperative ventures and spent months working with a senator in the Illinois legislature through U.S. Department of State Legislative Fellowship Program. So I was coming to the planning later, and it was my second career. And before that, I had practical experience working for city government in my hometown. In May 2023, I earned PhD in city and regional planning at Ohio State University with research specialty in planning for people with disabilities, especially with autism. So my publications, conferences, presentation, and research and current employment have received some United States and some international attention. And these are three main areas, and this is how I tailored kind of my research interest to this particular presentation. So these research and interest areas include urban planning as it relates to sustainable land use and social responsibility, public and other accommodations for people with disabilities, in particular neurodivergent population, people with autism or autistic adults, and planning for post-war rebuilding of Ukraine. So my interest in international planning connected of me being immigrant in this country and knowing other languages. So like understanding different cultures, learning from different cultures, and also focus on disability and disability accommodations in United States, learning about disability policies, politics, and how now it can be relevant to Ukraine rebuilding. My presentation will mainly would focus on Ukraine Rebuilding Action Group and how it's related and connected with Ukrainian colleagues, Urban Coalition for Ukraine, Rosquit. More about these programs you can read on the website provided here on the slides. We have more information about Rosquit projects. Rosquit in Ukrainian means blossoming. And you can see all urban regional planning related projects on the website and publications. So Ukraine Rebuilding Action Group was formed during National Planning Conference in San Diego on May 2nd, 2022. Because of the full scale invasion that happens in February 24, this was the natural response to the events in Ukraine. The key organization within APA and International Division was Humanitarian Division. So people who were at that time in San Diego decided to form this group. Unfortunately, I couldn't participate going there, and they didn't provide online options for participation, but I got connected through International Division to this group. So currently in Ukraine Rebuilding Action Group, we have 35 active members, meaning that during our monthly meetings, these are usually 35 active members who work on different projects. Overall, in our database, we have more than 100 planners who are APA members. We did 5 national and international presentations, international mainly in European Union. It was a couple of presentations in Poland. One presentation was in Brussels online, and national conferences starting from 2022, we have one session devoted to work of Ukraine Rebuilding Action Group. This coming April APA conference, one of our proposals that was written by Tim Van Epp was accepted. So if you are in National Planning Conference this year in Minneapolis, you're welcome to join. Another session that I will be co-speaker will be devoted to autism planning and K-12 schools. Overall, we had probably more than 50 URAG meetings if you count 2 meetings every month, 2-3 meetings every month within our core group for 2 years. We did 3 publications. 2 of those publications connected with Rosquit, Urban Coalition for Ukraine. They have publishing house, collaborate with publishing house in Europe. And one publication will be, and I just mentioned it in my presentation, in February. Several of our core members were visiting speakers in 3 planning schools: Penn, University of Northern Texas, and Kharkiv. We work in coordination, so meaning every meeting we would have some representatives of this organization, which is on the slide. World Bank, UN Development Program, especially UN Habitat, International City Management Association. I was told that one of the co-founder of International City Management Association is KU alum. Yes. USAID, Urban Land Institute, Society of American Military Engineers, Rosquit, SADAS, it's a Ukrainian organization that focuses on housing, and Fulbright Ukraine. We have on our team former president of APA as well. Initiatives. So mainly what we are focusing now is capacity building. I wanted to mention also that we have full-time jobs outside of this group. So all of this is volunteer work. Some people who are on Rosquit, core members and who are based and relocated in Europe or in Ukraine. This is like project management. So people who are responsible for media, they get some reimbursement. Ukraine Rebuilding Action Group seeks for the grant. We have some grants from APA, from Cultural Vista, Department of State program, but most of the members are working as a volunteers, contributing to work of this group. So we're focusing on publications now, workshops conducted with Rosquit and Ukrainian municipalities remotely on Zoom when it's possible, or doing workshops with internally and refugees who are in Europe, especially of most affected cities. And presentations. We also doing in the process of Ukrainian Planning School survey and guest lectures in the summer. There will be a course that Nathan Hudson from University of Northern Texas will do with Ukrainian planning schools. And we have lots of specific projects in Ukrainian cities. On Rosquit website, you can see how many cities we're actually working on. Mariupol, Rivne, and Kyiv is just ones that our core members are involved, but there are many, many more. So here I will focus on selected work because there's more, and I wanted to spend more time on questions and answers session, so you can ask me more specific questions related to this work. So one of the focuses is sustainable rebuilding and how it relates to planning and current work in Ukraine with European partners. So I don't know how aware you of European policies from, I think, 2022. There is this European Parliament initiative, New European Bauhaus. I will put the links after I finish presentation in the chat to this program. I was applying for New European Bauhaus competition to be a judge, to represent some Ukrainian experts, and particularly because my focus on disability and accommodations. So luckily I was elected as a judge, and in February we will have to review different projects from different European countries, including Ukraine, that focus on sustainable planning, inclusive planning. Sustainable rebuilding in Ukraine would also be connected with European Green Deal. All initiatives of rebuilding in Ukraine are focusing on green rebuilding. Because Ukraine has a stock of Soviet outdated housing stock. This is the main focus, how we can rebuild better and greener. So this is related to Ukraine green reconstruction. Because Ukraine is now hoping to be accepted as a member of European Union, all of the rebuilding initiatives have to follow European standards. Another related to sustainable rebuilding huge issue is demining, because a lot of Ukrainian territory mined, especially like fields. So it's how it affects farming and how it affects environment and nature, animals. So these are particular projects that United States are working with some European countries that provide special equipment. And key focus of our group, our action group, URAG, in particular our team lead, Tim Van Epp, is regional sustainable planning. There are several contributors to this regional sustainable planning guidebook. We are looking now for funds to translate it in Ukrainian and also to be able to publish it. We, of course, can publish it on the website, but we want also to have experts who can review all the points that are related to regional sustainable planning. How it's related to disability accommodations. Most of my research and my knowledge of policies are based in United States. ADA, how all of ADA passing and how all of the movement of disability movement started in United States. As you probably already know, after the Vietnam War, there were so many soldiers who are young, used to be able-bodied, coming back from war and realizing that spaces are not accessible. In addition to civil rights movements that created this window of opportunity to push for passing Americans with Disability Act. So similarly, I am thinking that this outgoing conflict will be this point or window of opportunity to make Ukrainian cities more accessible for injured people. So this is one of the examples that we are working on. Together with Nathan Hudson, he's assistant professor at Urban Planning University of Northern Texas, and Professor King Chung, who is professor of audiology, Mass General Hospital in Boston. We wrote this peer-reviewed article for Nature Cities that focuses on accommodation of people who are affected by alarms, explosions, and hearing loss. So Nature Cities' new publication, as you probably know, Nature is a big publishing house, and they just launched this year this new journal, Nature Cities. So we reach out to them because we think this is an important issue to address, because of mainly of most of the military help is like weapons now. And for 2 years, like Ukrainian ministry just now, like this month, had the decree that focuses on protective equipment for people who are in the military. As you can see in the photograph here, the explosions are so huge that soldiers don't have the equipment to protect their ears. We are addressing in this article the need for collaboration between Ukrainian military forces and medical experts in United States and in Ukraine, because Veterans Affairs and research in the United States focusing for a long time a lot how to accommodate soldiers who are coming from military conflicts, how to accommodate PTSD or hearing loss, because hearing loss is one of the biggest issues. And here we are collaborating with Professor of Audiology, who actually goes to Poland as a volunteer several times. This is how we found, Professor Nathan found her through the articles he was reading. She goes to Poland and does assessment of children, Ukrainian children there, and this is what she noticed about hearing loss and how it affects cognitive abilities, especially learning process, and how then kids would succeed in school. So this is not only addressing the hearing loss or special equipment to protect the ears, but how built environment should accommodate people who are losing who are have the PTSD or losing the hearing. So this says in this article also we talk about hearing loops, which I learned about when I interviewed planners in Arizona, for example. One of the accommodations for planning meetings, they have special rooms that have hearing loop, so it helps people with hearing disabilities. Another project that we've finished, public participation handbook, who was initiated, and most of the work was done by the head of international division, Jing. We were focusing here on kind of hands-on experience of planners. So Jing was writing from his experience doing public participation meetings in transportation. He works in Morgantown in Metropolitan Planning Organization and conducts public participation meetings in transportation. We will bring in and then like summarizing public participation tools that used in the United States, and I was advocating to add chapter on Ukraine context and how it can be applied in Ukrainian environment. So these are just fundamentals, Ukrainian context session, and then some of the case studies that can be relevant to post-war rebuilding or post-disaster rebuilding. And as you can see, we were using some of the Japanese examples. This is part of our work with American-Japanese group within International Division. For example, we were introducing the concept of machizukuri, which was public participation term that you cannot translate directly to like English language. There is book published, it's available on Amazon, about machizukuri, the whole Japanese process of public participation, how it's connected with communities. Rosquid book, you can use this QR code to see it. It's in both in Ukrainian and English language. This is similar we want to do with our regional sustainability planning guidebook, similarly publish it, so it would be available in 2 languages. Another projects I am currently working with our team core members. So these are, I was mentioning these people who are on my team, bridging planning schools. So you can see here Bruce Stiftel. Some of planners know him. He's very active in international planning and UN Habitat. He is helping to do Ukrainian planning school survey and their needs. Nathan Hudson directly works with several Ukrainian planning schools. Team lead Tim Van Epp, who is working on regional sustainability, and he's like oversees all of the URAC projects. And Jing Zhang, who is the chair of International Division and who was one of the main initiators of participation book. And me working as a secretary. So because I was Fulbright alum, and also during 2015, I was in a MASKI program. It's also program like Cultural Visa Department of State program for internships. Those people who were as Fulbrighters in the United States could apply for grant and do internship in any office in the United States to get practical experience. So I applied, and in 2015, I got accepted, and my goal was to come to Ohio State University. So through MASKI, I got to Ohio State University. In summer, I was working with Jennifer Evans Coley, who is now president of University of Texas, Arlington. And she was my advisor at Ohio State University before she left. So through these Cultural Vista programs, we still keep in touch as alums. So this is like using that opportunity. We got a small grant, $2,000, to work on collaborative project bridging planning schools. So what are the goals? Because planning education is different in Ukraine than in the United States, and because I was studying here in both master and PhD program, and now I'm helping our department to go through accreditation process of both of our programs, bachelor and master program. I am familiar with accreditation process here in the United States and how planning education connected with practice, how it's like research, practice related. I wish to have similar connection of academia with practicing fields in Ukraine. It's not necessarily to replicate it or do some kind of cookie cutter, but learning what the Ukrainian context, how our education system works, because it's more like top-down kind of approach. Ministry of Education mainly oversees that process. And we are thinking how we can connect practice and practicing planners with academia, how it's done in the United States. Similarly with accreditation, how accreditation process created here in the United States. What are the criteria, like how they're judged, all the programs, how they're evaluated every 5 or 7 years. All of that is in place. We are working now directly with 5 Ukrainian schools. We already got feedback from some Ukrainian professors of planning to see how we can look through their curriculum, the teachers, the classes they're teaching, how some classes can be focused on certain issues like disability and planning, for example, which is new, or sustainable development. Ukrainian context is still probably how it used to be in United States during Daniel Burnham times, that architects run the show. So within like city government, that would be a main chief architect who oversees those things. And he's the key person in decision-making process, working directly with the mayor or the city commission. And we already know how it changed here and how advocacy planning changed that structure, how it's now more bottom-up approach than top-down. So we are looking how what we have here, knowledge here, and also European schools, and how we can apply it to Ukrainian context. So this is that collaborative bridging planning school project. This is picture we took with Bonnie when we were in Philadelphia at the conference. And this is what's very, very sweet of them to have that. So that's all of my short presentation, 30 minutes. I hope I did well. So I just finished with because the topic of the presentation was opportunities and challenges. So I will mention, from my opinion, 3 challenges that I see now in this process and 3 opportunities. So the main challenges I see is people on different levels, like people who can do the work in Ukraine, because a lot of people went to war, or some are refugees. They are living now in Europe. They relocated. So it's demography question, right? It's not only us that we need more experts to help us to work in Ukraine Rebuilding Action Group, but also who will be there in Ukraine help to rebuild. And I can see, for example, me being in Ohio, in Columbus, and learning about Rust Belt and the industrialization and how cities like Cleveland or Akron or Youngstown are struggling. So that's kind of similarity. Of course, it's not war zone, but there are some similarities we can learn from how you help cities to change the economical structure, or what to do when people are leaving the city. So what can revitalize, or what other kind of opportunities can be there. Another challenge I see is data collection. Because of the ongoing war, some of the data, like spatial data, is not available for security reasons, right? Like maps and stuff. Although I think people who need to know it for evil purposes probably have that data. So that's one of the challenges. Also, how to collect the data, how data is collected. And all researchers know how you're working with data which is available, or you have to have so much resources to collect the data. Data collection was mentioned not only like what I see, but also by other international organizations. For example, there is German fund similar to US aid, GIZ. This is what they are concerned, like how data collected, how it's not similar with how it's done in Europe, for example. So it's called, there is a term for that, like when you are having 2 different data sets and how you kind of merge them or make them, accessible and available for analysis. And of course, the main challenge is ongoing war. So how you can do rebuilding when the war is still going on? And how you can plan, right? Because it's like ongoing conflict. How you can plan even in terms of population, like you need demographic population data to do analysis or do any kind of plan, right? So this is the point where planners are focusing in how you plan in the times of uncertainty. So that's another challenge. Opportunities that I see is collaboration. So I see more collaboration between European Union, cities, organizations, European Commission, and how those ideas of green rebuilding, accessible rebuilding, now doing it, like some Europeans are learning a lot about other things, how things are done. So I think it's mutual, like exchange and learning process. And I would like to see more involvement of American planners. I understand that the context might be different, but I think there are a lot of points of collaboration. Most of the people who are in our team, they have experience of international planning. For example, team has more than 20 years of experience working abroad in different countries. So when American Plan Association tells us how this publication that you are doing for regional sustainable development, focusing on Ukraine, is relevant to us. Like it's only Ukraine. And we're saying that you can use those guidelines or what we're talking about in different contexts, right? In particular, you can use it during disaster events, how you are planning or how you do public participation, where some kind of event happens like that. Planners who work in our group have experience working across the world. A team has experience working in Ukraine for several years on sustainability projects, in particular in Mariupol, it's on environmental protection. Environmental protection, environment, yes, it has context political, but natural environment is similar in different countries with some differences. Like that's how we pull, for example, from Japanese practices, and Machizukuri is about it. Another opportunity is green rebuilding, right? So because we inherited all the Soviet outdated infrastructure, how we can rebuild better and greener so it has low carbon footprint. And of course, my interest is accessibility. So how we can rebuild accessible spaces, that they will be accessible for everyone. Thank you so much.
Thank you so much, Gala. This has been wonderful to learn more about your work. As I said during the introduction, Return to the Roost is just such a nice chance for us to celebrate what our alums are doing. And it's very clear that you are effectively bridging the worlds of scholarship and practice. So it's wonderful to learn more about this. We do want to open this up for questions. And today it's great to see we have a diverse audience of faculty, students, and some of our friends. And so I want to invite everyone to participate in asking questions as you'd like. If you would like to raise your virtual hand, or if you'd like to put your question in the chat, I can take care of any of those that appear in the chat. And so we're going to go ahead and open it up now for questions. While you're collecting your thoughts on what those questions are, I'll get us started here. So I wanted to ask you, Gala, about the first challenge you mentioned, which is about people and needing experts in the rebuilding efforts. And this clearly is a crisis moment. And I'm curious about the cultural differences in terms of welcoming the input of experts, because I know here in the United States, at least, we have, gone through the pandemic and seen experts like Dr. Fauci not always being welcomed for the expertise they have. Have you thought about how expertise is welcomed in different cultural contexts, and how can we here in the United States, especially, pave the road for better collaborative relationships between experts and citizens, really working together as partners in problem solving?
Yeah, that's a great question. Thank you. Yes, I sometimes hear from like American planners some kind of hesitation saying, I don't speak Ukrainian language and I didn't work in Europe. Like my experience, for example, working in Asia or like South America. And I feel awkward even joining and you know, like there's hesitation. So I would say that it's similar to when you work in different environments where you have certain expertise, right? But you cannot assume that you know everything, right? Even you be an expert in particular specific field. So one of the example would be when I am working with disability communities, right? Living experience is different when you have actual disability. And if you read and study a lot from literature or going to the conference or doing research. So being humble, it's one of the things that planners are practicing when you go and work with the community, similarly with experts. What I can say that because I am living in Midwest and I studied and lived most of life in United States in Midwest. It's Kansas, Ohio. I lived in Missouri for a while. So I could say what is similar with Ukrainian culture and Ukrainians and Midwest as being direct, and I would say Ukrainians can open say that they don't like something. So if even like they don't agree with you, they would tell you that honestly. So this is it's a cultural thing, right? You still need to learn some cultural differences. Ukrainians sometimes very opinionated, and I'm generalizing, of course, right? And sometimes they give their opinion when you don't even ask them, right? They want to be perceived that they're expert and they know. So there is like cultural differences that you can learn, and you can like, if you are staying humble and you are open to learning, you can I think contribute to both like cultural exchanges. Because I think because American planning field is changing demographically, like our student body is changing tremendously. Like my classroom is very diverse. We have students from so many countries, so many states. So you always learning something new. So the thing is that you have to be flexible, right? So I would say to not be afraid. And if you want some kind of point, you know, like you don't know, I feel like where did I start or how I do it? URAG, our Ukrainian Rebuilding Action Group can be that starting point, right? Because we are, people on our team are Ukrainians who have degrees in American context, right? We speak languages, and we have American planners who are connected to the region, who work there, or who have international experience. So if you are looking how I can enter this field or how I can provide my expert opinion, our organization would be one. You can reach out to me or Team Vanep. You can attend our meetings, our monthly meetings. We meet monthly by Zoom. We have also sub-team, very specific, so you can just come and sit there and say nothing to learn about what work we are doing. And then join particular sub-team on group that working on particular issue. It can be green rebuilding. It can be one of the projects that now, for example, Roskvit is doing with Greenpeace, focusing on Dnipro River integrated vision. Because of Kherson dam explosion, the whole region now affected by that. So there is project for 6 months, how to look at the whole basin, and it's very sustainable regional planning kind of elected because it involves different groups. So you can join different initiatives that are close to you, or you feel like you're expert in, and you can participate like that. I hope I answered your question.
You did. And I think there were so many great points in what you said, including the point that thinking about humility and that for our students as they're here to gain expertise and become an expert in a given area, it's really just the beginning of their learning process as they go out into the world and try to solve problems. Thank you for that. So we have a question from Bonnie, Professor Johnson. It's in the chat. And then I see Chris Kaliba, Professor Kaliba has his hand up. From Dr. Johnson, is the involvement of Japan part of learning about rebuilding after war? What has been some of their advice for Ukraine?
So some people who are active in our Japanese American group, their expertise, for example, in nuclear waste and how you work after nuclear disaster. And Ukraine already collaborated with Japan after Chernobyl, and when Fukushima crisis was in Japan, Japanese experts were contacting Ukrainians. So we are in close collaboration between countries on those issues because Ukrainians have an experience of being first responders in this kind of crisis of nuclear explosion, nuclear power plant. And Japanese also had that experience. So we are collaborating. Another point of connection between Japan and Ukraine through Kyoto Protocol CO2 emission. Japan, I think it's 2010, 12, was buying greenhouse emissions and providing some support for Ukraine. For example, helping us to change our underground fleet to make it's more like energy efficient. Another project was Japanese government was using this greenhouse emission, trades to update all of our fleet of police cars in Ukraine, making it hybrid, like all police cars were like hybrid. So we were considering this like win-win situation because Japan was given their, equipment, also promoting their manufacturers and buying those credits for CO2 emission and for us as well. What we also involved with Japan, American Planning Group. We want to create collaboration between American and Japanese schools of planning. We have several American planners who are in international division and in Japanese American group who are based in Tokyo, who speak English, and they are interested in that kind of collaboration between students, planning students. Like current, our project is actually dictionary, which is interesting. It's related to my language degree. So we have planners who work in Japan, Americans, and they speak Japanese. So we're creating this Japanese American planning dictionary because certain terms, like Machizukuri was one of the examples, even like in design and architecture, you cannot directly translate them to English. So, and similarly, some concept in the United States, right? In the United States context and planning, you also need to explain that. So this is kind of, one of the ways to collaborate. Similar with Ukraine, you can collaborate in that project. Oh, I see.
Great. Thank you. Professor Kaliba, you're up next.
Okay.
Thanks, Heather. And I do think I see Kirk's question in the chat, and I think it may feed into his question. But I study networks, and I'm interested in what your experiences have been. And thank you for your service to the profession and to the people of Ukraine. Our thoughts and hopes and prayers, and not only that, but hopefully our support is tangibly through your work and your work of your colleagues can really make a difference there. So thank you. So I study networks, and I'm curious to know what your experiences have been regarding the occupied territories. And I don't know the geographic distribution of the planning schools and which ones may fall within Russian control, but have those regions been totally cut off from you, or is there still a way to communicate and coordinate responses? Maybe the coordination may be more difficult, but at least to communicate with colleagues. And that this feeds into Kirk's question, I think, as well, around bureaucracy, sort of what would come post war recovery. But I'm really interested in how those communication lines can be sustained during times of war like this.
Yes, so we have internally displaced people from those regions, and we have people who are in Europe. So, for example, Nathan Hudson research project now is focusing and working with diaspora, so Ukrainians who are refugees in other countries, and also Ukrainians who live, for example, in the United States for a certain period of time. And also like figuring out how these people can contribute to rebuilding or what they can say. Also, who is kind of like when you work with those kind of groups, you want to know how these people can contribute, in which way, like the priorities too. Who has first to say in those things, right? People who just left because of the occupation, or people who already were born here from Ukrainian parents, but still have attachment, a connection to Ukraine. We have had already last year several workshops with internally displaced people from those occupied region and those who are like in Europe. Workshop like Mariupol project, one of the projects that Roskvit is working, and Nathan is part of it, is working on city vision. It's like first initial planning process when you work on the vision, how the city, because the main industrial complex Azovstal was destroyed, how now they see changing of the whole rebuilding of that region. So the planners are working with those people who are relocated, connected to that. Like they cannot come back because it's occupied, and also lots of housing is destroyed, not most of it, but they still have connection to that. One of the project also that we connect with diaspora and internally displaced and refugees on that project is funded by European Union, and it's focusing on culture and history and working with trauma. How you rethink about it, how you include history, culture, and traumatic experience into rebuilding, into planning. So one of the projects is Your Heritage, funded by European Union, and through Creative Europe. It's because heritage and cultural and historical buildings and artifacts are at stake, how we can redefine it, how we can save it. So connection with those occupied territories still happening as long as you have internet. Of course, it's more difficult, but people who even relocated to other countries still keep in touch with those people. So that's what I know, and then this is what I can say about. And in terms of bureaucratic inertia, yes, I think it still didn't disappear. But I think with war, full scale invasion showed us that the bottom up, on the ground connections are more flexible and faster. They react faster, even in terms of help, volunteering. Like the first months the pouring support from abroad. And even now, like there's so many organizations that are connected with United States. Like some groups work on food delivery. Some even work and get funding for animal relocation or saving animals, like domestic animals, because they're left. So the help from different local religious, like small cities communities, was overpouring. So I would say that in terms of networking relationship, the small initiatives on the ground, bottom organization was helping a lot.
Yeah, thank you for addressing the next question, getting us to the next question, which was from our friend and Professor Emeritus, Kirk McClure. So glad to see Kirk here with us today. So his question, in addition to bureaucratic inertia, also asks if you think that post-war Ukraine will be the same. Also, do you think it will become easier to implement change because of the crisis that's been imposed by the war?
We hope, yes, that's a lot of Ukrainians that they hope that joining European Union would help to look at some practices, that's what new Bauhaus or European Bauhaus is focusing on green rebuilding and accessible, inclusive rebuilding. So hopefully, and also there is hope that similar like in United States after the Vietnam War, so many young, male came from war injured, and they remember how it was when they were able-bodied. And they were also one of the driving forces to make cities more accessible. Now you cannot imagine how is building, like any KU campus building can be without ramp or elevator or special accommodation. But it didn't happen, in 1 year. It took years to happen, right? So I think this is one of the reasons, like crisis like that can help because more people are affected, right? It just obviously you think that more people are affected, so that you have more people like focusing on those issues.
That's a perfect lead in to our next question, which is from Professor Zach Moore. And he says he was really taken by the idea of using the war as a policy window for improving accessibility of cities. Beyond just improving the physical accessibility issues, are there other accessibility issues that you think might be a possibility?
Exactly, yes. So the hearing loss that I was studying and how it's related to autism, like sensory issues, right? Because of trauma and PTSD and how it affects cognitive abilities, your executive functions. So all of these things are related. It's not only physical disabilities. Why I'm talking about physical disabilities? Because it's so obvious, right? It's like in your face. You see injured soldiers. Some of them have prosthetic limbs, which they kind of try to mitigate, but some will not have that. And invisible disabilities, what we call like PTSD, hearing loss, that is not like autism is one of that when you see the person, you don't know if that person has PTSD or if that person has autism, but these people still need accommodations so they can function. Yeah, so I would say it's not only physical accessibilities, and we are learning more about it because there's more research on in the field of neuroscience. Like one of my projects, I collaborate with neuroscientists now to do work together. Similarly, the article that we published, we are collaborating with audiologists, right? Who would think that such different profession can be like merging. So this is the world we're living in, interdisciplinary, like learning from different disciplines.
Yeah, I think your talk did a fantastic job of illustrating that potential of working across those disciplinary boundaries to really provide a more nuanced and better answer to some of our questions. Thank you.
Yep.
Last call for any questions from the group, and especially I want to encourage our students who are with us today. If you haven't yet chimed in, now is your invitation. We'd love to hear from you. If you have a question you'd like to pose, want to make sure that you feel welcome to give a question here or a comment. Anyone else? Okay, go ahead.
Okay, Gala, it's so great to see you and hear about all the amazing things you're doing. And it sounds like how you network is you know someone who knows someone who knows someone, and I've always admired how good you are at that. It seems like there's nobody that doesn't know you, Gala. I know we don't have a lot of time left, but my burning question is, I mean, is Ukraine going to come through this independent of Russia? I mean, do you have a sense of, like, is there hope that Ukraine's going to come through this?
So I would say we don't have other choice, right?
Mm.
Ukraine went through so many wars through the history, if you know. If you want to learn more about history and context, I would recommend Timothy Snyder lectures on YouTube. They're available and free, and they're amazing lectures that he gave. I think it's the only lectures on Ukraine history for undergraduate in the whole United States, and it's available on YouTube. And you can listen to him how he talks about Ukraine, what Ukraine went through, like centuries, through different wars, Holodomors, and how it survived and flourished. So there is hope for that. And also the desire of other people, not only Ukrainians, and European countries to see us in Europe, European Union. And also it's why we are so busy. We are staying so busy, and why we are doing this, because this is kind of therapeutic even for planners, right? So Tim, for example, Van Epp, he started to work in Ukraine in environmental issues through USAID and other projects from 90s. He put so much work in Azovstal, environmental issues addressing that plant. And now seeing it being destroyed, he said, Gala, can you believe 20 years of my work that I put in this place just destroyed? So he said, I cannot go every day. He said, I am going to bed and sleep. I think about Ukraine. So there is like personal attachment as well, right? And there are many people like Tim in our team, and I think in Europe and in other countries. And another point, that this is what we learn, right? We have other conflicts, and we will probably have. This is how humans are. So how we can learn from this and do better, or how we can even use this experience and see how we can address those issues when you have disaster, right? Because when you work with disaster, or like we have examples of Hurricane Katrina, right? Like first responders, immediate help, and how planners are involved at the get-go, and how it's connected to trauma, and like how planners have to be trained more than just, doing site planning and everything, how it's connected with other disciplines. So I think that's why I named this presentation. It's challenges and opportunities for us.
What a nice way to wrap this up.
Thank you, Gala.
Yeah, sorry. I do want to mention also, Professor Ward Lyles has left a comment in the chat that Snyder's book on tyranny is amazing, and depending on the person, a one-sit read. So just wanted to make sure the group heard about that. Well, I want to be sure and ask everyone to join me again in thanking Dr. Gala Kornienko.
Thank you so much. Thank you for inviting me.
Thank you.
Thank you.
It was great to see everyone. Just a quick shout out. The Intellectual Life Committee will host our next event on Wednesday, February 28th. So please watch your email for more details on that. Thanks, everyone. And for all the Chiefs fans in our audience today, we hope a happy Sunday for you. Take care, everyone. Thank you.
Bye-bye. Rock chalk.
Rock Chalk. Gala, great job.
Thank you so much. Yeah. And if you can share, so I can share with my team the recording, it would be nice too. Thank you.
Thank you, Gala. So wonderful to see you.
Thank you.
And we were gonna have a nice contingent at the